Hello and welcome back to Beyond Bosch. I'm your host, Jessica Dahl. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And feel free to leave a review if you like this one. Today's episode is a hot topic that's on all of our radar. And if it's not, it should be. The topic of talent in the workplace and the importance of investing in early education to develop talent needed for the future workforce. The two women joining me today have a lot of experience with this topic, and I am thrilled to welcome Kerry Ebersole Singh from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and Kat Owsley, the president of the Bosch Community Fund. Welcome to the show, Kerry and Kat.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation. You both have so much experience in this area. You're doing great things. I can't wait to just get into it. So both of you, I'd love to hear a little bit more about who you are and what you do, so we can the audience can come along with us on this journey and understand where you're coming from. And maybe we start with you, Kerry.
Oh my goodness. I always get tripped up on these questions because I always want to start, well, I was born in 1976 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but we won't go that far back. So yeah, currently I'm over at MEDC, as you referenced, as the Chief Talent Solutions Officer. I am a proud mother of a first grader and a proud graduate, which sometimes you don't hear often these days, of Michigan State University. We've been in the news a little bit lately, but we have amazing academic and R&D happening on campus that we're so grateful for, not only for Michigan State, but our higher ed institutions across the state of Michigan, which we'll talk more about. I have been back in state government over the last 4 years, serving in a variety of different roles, from leading the 2020 census effort to jumping into our public health crisis and helping our Department of Health and Human Services with vaccine deployment. I launched the 60 by 30 office, which is Governor Whitmer's post-secondary goal attainment for working age adults here in the great state of Michigan, leading those My Reconnect programs and Futures for Frontliners, and then now here at MEDC. So we've had a lot of great stuff going on, and that's a little bit. I can talk more personally. I like IPAs. I like red wine. I like almost all foods. So we can talk about all of that later.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Kat, let's hear a little bit from your side.
Yeah. Hi. I've been with Bosch coming up on 12 years in April, and came over to get the foundation going for North America. So I always say I think I have one of the best jobs in the company, because I really believe that I do, because I get to meet incredible people both internally and externally. I came from a large private foundation in Michigan, and prior to that I was all nonprofit. So I'm from Detroit. I was gone for about 10 years, but came back to work at the Detroit Regional Chamber for about 8 years, thinking that would be the longest stint I'd ever have at any one company. And now here I am 12 years at Bosch. So I also enjoy red wine and would be happy to sit down for a meal with both of you.
Wonderful. Long walks on the beach, a cup of wine, how it goes. I love it. Oh, thank you both for sharing. Now, for our audience, I would love to, why do we have both of you on here together? I think that's probably the question people are asking themselves, right? Like, okay, state of Michigan, community fund at Bosch. Well, Bosch obviously is headquartered in Michigan, in Farmington Hills. So that's one key point for those who don't know that. I want to make sure that's level set. But also there's some initiatives happening. There's a lot of good work happening. And I'd love for both of you to kind of talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that, what are these? Let's talk about talent acquisition status in the state, and maybe is it similar around the country, and the issues, obstacles we're facing, and that what you two and your organizations are doing about it. So either one, whoever wants to lead with that.
Well, I'll kick it off real quickly. I think from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation just kind of reinstituted a strategic pillar focused talent and workforce issues. About 2 years ago, I was hired to help lead this piece of our work in our collective and comprehensive approach to economic development. And it's obviously been a huge priority for the Whitmer-Gilchrist administration here in state in terms of removing tuition barriers and promoting more opportunities for education, knowing that not only raises up folks' ability to pursue their dreams and journey, but also directly correlates to wages as well. We at MEDC recognize that, this generation coming out of the schools now, this is more about lifelong learning. And we need to really be thoughtful to connect that PK through career, that there's upskilling, but there's also, I always go to the word cultivate. We need to cultivate the future generation of talent and really arm them with the skills to take, many different directions, but knowing that there's some key STEM skills that are really needed, especially for innovation and where industry is going. And I think you referenced it, Jessica, that, whether it's here in the state of Michigan or across the country or globe, there is a constricted labor market right now, that this is a pinch that everyone's feeling. And I think some of the programs that we've instituted at the MEDC, you are going to see how aggressive we are being to help support not only partnering with companies to meet their immediate workforce needs, but really being thoughtful in terms of the partnership so we can do that deeper and long-term investment. So we know this is a commitment that you're not only going to be able to hire the workforce you need to be successful today, but in 5 and 10 years, you're going to have a constant, strong pipeline to meet your needs. So.
Absolutely. So Kat, do you want to follow up with maybe where you're coming in, where Bosch is playing into that?
And I'll say too that I accosted Carrie as the +1 who was invited to a party of hers and her husband Sam's to say, I'm a big fan. And I think we have a lot of things in common as it relates to what we're trying to do as around talent and workforce development. And so that's how this whole thing kind of got started. So thankfully, Carrie didn't think I was a stalker. But what I would say is
just a small world. It's a small world.
Totally small world. It's so crazy. But yeah, I mean, and I would echo everything that Carrie said and say that, I think from the position that I have, which is I'm paid by a corporation that's needing to focus on talent, but I'm running their foundation for North America. And so, I'm out there in the community doing community engagement, speaking to people, and then making wise investments. And I think what MEDC and Bosch can be showing and doing can be a template for others, but certainly we feel like we need to disrupt negative trends. And for me, that means kids need to understand what's the practical application of what they're learning. They need to be able to literally see what is the education and career pathway for me. Where does it go to? We find, because we're in 38 site communities across Canada, North America, and Costa Rica, that everybody says that we talk to educators, education administrations, there's a hunger to be connected more thoughtfully and effectively to industry. And where we see great things happening is when educators can see what's happening in industry and make that translation back to students and parents and vice versa. Because I see myself as working for Bosch and we're on the demand side, we need that talent, but my day job is to help support the supply side and arm students with access to experiential learning and to understanding and to be able to see that bigger picture for themselves. I'd say the other thing too is really demystifying STEM, because it's not this gigantic capital letters STEM. It really is just problem solving that anybody can do at any age. And once you start to get that, that's not just for a chosen few, that I can participate in that even as a young person or on a personal level or in my classroom, it starts to really open up the doors and you can start to see yourself in some of these jobs that companies like Bosch are actually, posting for.
Oh, that's really good. The demystifying actually made that, just that word is really powerful, I think. And exactly what you just said. I think for some kids who and even adults really who maybe aren't geared toward math and science, but they have these insane other skills and talents that could easily be woven into STEM field, but because they have that kind of preconceived notion, right? Like that you have to go this path or it's for this certain group of people. I think that's very powerful already.
I want to jump in with a couple of things. One, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Charlie Ackerman, the CHRO at Bosch, who was a very strong, outspoken person when we launched the Talent Action Team, which is one of our kind of strategic initiatives that we've deployed, recognizing the long-term support in that PK-12 system, and then connecting it back to Kat's strategy and role, and really supporting these initiatives in that space. And I just, again, government, we have to be attuned and receptive to what industry is saying, what the needs are, and to really step up to be a partner, to support those strategies. So I just, can't say enough again about Bosch, their role, their engagement with us, and not just because you have, staff folks that are stalkers at anniversary parties, but in all seriousness, that are doing the right things in the communities to deliver upon their needs. These are what our corporate partners we want to see, is they're really deeply invested in community.
That's wonderful. So tell me more. You mentioned the Talent Action Team. I think I'm saying that
Yes.
right. Talent Action Team. What is that? I know you heard it said a little bit like it's a strategic. What
initiative.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's a coordinating table at its simplest form, but we invited about 15 companies to sit. Work with us on their occupational outlooks in terms of what their hiring needs were going to look like, not only within the next, but also going out to a 5-year outlook in terms of what are those top positions needed. One of the outcomes of that, we prioritized 4 positions: electrical engineers, software developers, and then production, or assembly folks, and first line supervisors. And from there, we talked about within those 4 categories, and obviously the regional needs, we focused on, optimize work through grants with some higher ed partners, whether it's at the community college level or the 4-year level, whether they need to right size capacity needs to help on recruitment for students into those programs to ensure we were meeting those numbers, but also ensuring that we are delivering exactly what industry needs out of those certificate or degree programs. I think the next piece, that especially for those 4-year occupations or degree needs, we added and launched the Michigander Scholars Program, which is essentially an opportunity for students to earn a $10,000 scholarship towards their tuition if they accepted a position either as an electrical engineer or software developer at one of our core companies. And then they could be awarded that $10,000 scholarship, or if they're not graduating, if they were a junior, they could accept an internship and receive $5,000 in scholarship money. And that was something, again, working with employers, defining, potential ways to be more supportive, to help retain. This is also a retention strategy here in the state of Michigan. We want to retain those top graduates coming out of University of Michigan and some of our other fabulous institutions. But it's also working with the companies in a very succinct way for those recruitment opportunities with students out of those programs. So those are a couple of, there's much more that has gone on around the Talent Action Team. I can very quickly give you some stats in terms of what we've seen in placing production roles, which is another area we hear a lot from employers, that they're having challenges in placing Uh, but we're finding some magic sauce together, and we hired over 960 folks on the west side of Michigan with 2 companies at the production level, and we know that's our goal. I'm just going to say it, Jessica, flat. I told all the companies, because this is how I do business. I want you to say, not only to your colleagues, in your shop here in Michigan, but across the globe, that there is no better partner than the state of Michigan when you need help meeting your workforce needs. So I want you to shout from the mountaintops. And that is ultimately the vision, the goal, that we don't want you. If you're going to expand, you're going to do it here. If you're going to look at locating a new facility, that you're going to do it here, because you have someone in the trenches with you developing that talent for you to be successful.
That is amazing. And I love that. No, it's just, I'm processing all the information, and it's just really, I can see it, I can visualize it. And I love the long-term approach and the kind of that bird's eye view, understanding what we need, where things have worked and haven't, and finding those solutions and putting things in place. Bosch is a key player here as one of these partner companies that you just referred to, Kerry. So how does that work? What does that mean from the Bosch side?
Well, as Carrie mentioned, I mean, that's really that was really driven by Charlie Ackerman to sign up for the EV Scholars Program under MEDC. I think that's where, like, Charlie and I talk about what can be driving through the business side of it, and then what we can be driving from the philanthropic side, right? And so I feel like, as I was saying, in my mind, Charlie is a customer, if you will, and so are all the other, employers in the state and the country, and they're looking, they're on the demand side. I feel like my job, more generally, including Bosch, is to be thinking about how do we help support, that supply side, and helping teachers, education administrations, parents, and students to be prepared for these jobs, right? And so it's even just a matter of connecting, and it's awareness. It's a matter of pulling up exemplars that we then can share around the country. I'd say even a program that we've been supporting for a number of years at Wayne Risa, which is the intermediate school district for Wayne County, where they literally are mapping out for parents and students with a counselor, like, this is the steps that, that you'll need to take. Here's the paper you need to sign on this date. Literally, like, mapping it. And we raise that up when we're in other places to say, sometimes it takes that literally to be mapping it out and showing somebody the steps to get from point A to point B. In other instances, it's maybe just a boost, right? You already know you might want to go into something in the automotive industry, but you might have a need-based, like, scholarship, opportunity that we want to make sure kids are connected to. So sometimes just what you might need is just that financial boost or that connection to know that, okay, I know what it is that I want to do, but there might be a financial need, or, something where foundations like ours and other funding entities can be supportive of making that next step. And then I think, the last thing that I would say is, even just from the standpoint of our kids even prepared leaving high school with mathematics, let's say. So we've supported Kettering and Michigan State University in programs just to make sure kids are at meets minimum, and they're set up to be successful when they go into their, post-secondary education. Because once that kind of, like, that one piece kind of maybe falls off, it can become a snowball effect. So just making sure that, there's lots of different ways and different places that we're sort of making those investments so that kids are successful along that continuum.
That's really powerful. I'm picturing bridging those gaps, right? Like, you're identifying the gaps, finding the ways to get people to that other side. Because I think of, too, like, just in my own experience of, high school and university, of no clue, and I come from a big family. My parents didn't go to college, so, like, they didn't know how to navigate that for me. And I know that's a lot of people, right? So,
Mhm.
thinking of, for me, I'm thinking of that aspect too, of some kids that are very talented, and deserve that opportunity as well, right? But maybe don't have the parents or the support at that level, and this could help them.
A couple of things just to tag on to that one is on this, kids want to do what they know. And that's kind of restrictive, right? For a lot of kids that may be underserved across the state, that unless they are exposed and offered opportunities to understand what's possible, or, connect with things that, hey, yeah, that could turn into how I, make a living. So I think that's an important factor, especially when we're thinking about really cultivating that younger age talent into career. And then the other piece that I wanted to kind of mention, to what Kat mentioned on her support of the Bosch Community Foundation for the Michigan State University in Kettering. And, the provost of Wayne State University said to me, the biggest barrier to getting students of color into engineering school is calculus. So I know I'm wondering, we support MSU's math boot camp that is into, their high school aged, targeted by, low to moderate income zip codes, to help give them additional supports into college and into engineering. So I think that this is just another example. It's like we can identify where there's barriers, and then we collectively can partner to lift up and help those supports into in demand areas. So that's part of the excitement part.
Absolutely. It takes a village, right?
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah. And if that's that same one, Carrie, we had piloted that with MSU, with Farmington. We said, Farmington, if you'll be the guinea pig, we would pay for it. With MSU, I remember we were all together in the summer, and these professors were showing up in shorts and coming off of flights from Arizona. But we were like, let's give this a try, because it was MSU going into the school during the junior, senior school year, whereas the catering program was immersive during the summer. And just even seeing comparatively what works better for a student. And it might be not a one fits all, but having these, I think access is such a big, we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, because access we really want to emphasize from the standpoint that, everybody should have the opportunity. And so we try to meet people where they are. We want, people to feel like they can grab onto something that they might be interested in, but also have agency over their own path, right? So I really, really resonated with me, Carrie, when you said kids will gravitate toward what they know. And if we don't give them opportunities to know new things, they won't. You're so restricted, because I was in the same situation as you, Jessica. My parents, my dad didn't finish school. He had to raise his sisters. My mom didn't go to college. I didn't know what I didn't know. So you just you are really very much, a product of your family and your educational experience. So
Absolutely.
Can I tell a personal story on that, since you brought up your parents? So when I was in high school, I was like, I'll be a teacher. My parents were teachers. My dad went into administration, right? My mom goes, over my dead body, are you going to become a teacher? Who responds like that, right? But that was her response to me. And I, was like, why? And she goes, it's too political. It's too political. And the ironic part is I got my start in politics. I graduated from Michigan State University and started working in the legislature after that. And so I always tease her today, yeah, it's too political. And then what do? I go, and she would say, well, it's straightforward when you're in politics. Anyway, 25 years later, I think it's all turned out okay for myself and my own career. It's drawn. It's a comfort when you see it within your own home, and if you're not, exposed again to what's possible and connecting to that, it's that connection between aptitude and passion, right? In terms of what you want for younger people in their kind of career journey.
And that's probably why you have this passion doing what you do today. I mean, you can see it, right? And I think that's really what happens. I mean, I love that story. It's so true, because I was thinking about this. My kids had their assembly, and it's always like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's so many kids that are like a teacher or whatever their dad or mom is, that's the standard answer, because it's what they know.
I told my dad that I wanted to be an ambassador, and he said, oh, well, you weren't born a Kennedy, so. But what I will say, and I just said it to our new head of mobility, Paul Thomas, this morning here at Bosch, I said, I feel like I am an ambassador to the community from Bosch. So I did get my wish, Dad, and I just threw my dad under the bus. So sorry, Dad, if he listens to this.
I'm going to make sure he listens to it. I'll find out.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, speaking of that, so we're talking a little, since we're a little bit personal now, how did each of you arrive here? Because like you said, Carrie, you've been doing this something in this industry 25 years, you said. You wanted to be a teacher. Like what made you take this path? How did you kind of get to where you are today?
That's gonna take too long, Jessica. No, and I gotta tell you, I'm gonna thread in now my dad. My dad said to me, there's always room for someone good. You work hard, you show up. It's kind of that promises made, promises delivered. So how did I arrive here? A lot of it is hard work and showing up. When I started out of college in my professional career, I was the volunteer to come in early and answer phones and make copies. And I think that type of mentality, throughout, the actual jobs may look different in terms of what you're volunteering for, but and then just being kind of tenacious and, promises made, promises kept, and opportunities have unfolded for me. I've been that fortunate. And I have, I've had a lot of great mentors and teachers in my life that have supported me as well, that have helped open doors. We're telling stories a little bit. I'll tell you one story. After my first 2 years working in the Democratic legislature, keep in mind, this is when Gretchen Whitmer was first running for State House in 2000. And so that's how far back I go with her. But I worked a lot with Dan Lepp, now the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? We worked day to day on her race, actually. And he was the only man I consulted after that election cycle to ask, what should I do next? I'm a 23, 24-year-old kid at this point. But everyone else, the mentors through that were women, and I've had this amazing support of a network of women that I've worked with, I've been in the trenches with, that have been supportive and great teachers that I cannot say enough about, but lots of good fortune and hard work along the way would be my storytelling there.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Love that. What about you, Kat?
That all resonates with me for sure. I mean, I started working when I was 16. I really wanted to be working. That job taught me customer service. That was like such a big piece for them. And that I think has carried me through every job. Like I want people to enjoy the interaction. I want it to be effective. I want people to have a enjoyable experience. So, and my team is that way now. Like I can teach you grant making, but if you don't really care about the customer, in this instance, that's a fellow associate, that's a community member, that's a stakeholder, that's a grant recipient, then we don't have a good program, right? So that's one thing I'd say. I'd say working my plan. Like I went to Kalamazoo College and I just worked that plan. I took advantage of all the internships, the foreign study. I made connections, but I also feel like I remember one of my mentors was Tammy Dorr at the Detroit Regional Chamber, and she was an executive vice president at the time, and she'd be the first person if someone didn't have a seat to go get a chair for them. And I really learned like no job is to, you can do absolutely anything. And I wouldn't ask my team to do anything that I can't do myself. And I think that is, like that servant leadership idea that was kind of ingrained in me when I was at the Detroit Regional Chamber. Like, like Carrie, you said, like you just put your, nose to the grindstone and you get the job done. I think we're scrappy.
Yeah.
We're scrappy hard workers. I mean, I would be at the chamber by 7 a.m. I'd be the first there. I'd be the last to leave. I'd go in on Sundays. I mean, we used to have to wear pantyhose. That's how old school that was. And that was the year 2000, no joke. And then if we were all good associates, we'd get the summer off and we could wear no hosiery. Until Labor Day. And then it was back to reality. But, I appreciate now, like, how, like, I can walk into Bosch and everybody is just it's like a really casual, but very professional and very driven environment because I had
Mm.
those pantyhose days.
I love this. I feel the same way. I think this is just great for those listening because obviously we're talking about work, right? Like at the end of the day, when we talk about talent and developing people, what are we developing them for? Their life's work, right? That may look completely different across the board, but I think it's very powerful and inspirational to hear, right? These stories, I think stories can inspire us. And I love that you both shared so openly both of those stories. And I feel the same way. I've had similar things in my path and my career path that are just like funny, where you think back, like every time I go through a car wash now, the smell of a car wash brings me back to my internship at Bosch when I first started because I used to wash cars and like do the I was an intern and I would take them on safety road shows and we didn't have a lot of people then. And so I would do a lot of this work like that engineers were doing on my team because they didn't have enough people to do it. So I had all this exposure, but at the same time, I was also the intern cleaning cars, right? Like, so I was talking to media, but cleaning cars afterwards. So it was always just like this kind of, but that's literally the rest of your career, right? Like you have to be able to do both and be willing to. And I think that what you said, Kat, like that that's leadership, right? And so I love
Mhm.
that. I love those stories.
And can I
Um,
say one more thing,
yeah,
Jessica? I think this about Carrie from what I know of her, and I think about this about you as well as a colleague of mine at Bosch, but just supporting one another, right? Like this whole like I remember hearing this when I worked at a job with Paul Shutt at Issue Media Group, this zero sum. Like if you win, I'm not winning, or if I'm winning, you're not winning. And it's not true. Like we really all can win. Like I can be supportive of Carrie and see her success without feeling like my success is diminished. And I feel like it's really important too, like now that I'm raising a daughter, and I know you are too, like, be supportive of one another, particularly women, because we can all do something really well together. And it might be a little Pollyannish, but I really do believe it and want to be a supporter of like my fellow Michigander, my fellow Boschler. I just, it just feels better too. But we also know like that
Mm.
is actually winning for everybody. Do you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that. We rise together, right? Like,
I
Mhm.
think so. I
I
think so.
agree. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, this has been so good. But a couple of things I do want to ask are, what are you proud of and excited about? Because
Mm.
these initiatives that are happening are pretty exciting. And it doesn't have to be on this topic exactly, but just one thing that comes to mind that you're really proud of, and then that you're excited about coming up in the future.
I'll jump in and kick it off here too. Is I would say, and I'm going to mention two. I'm going to break your rule. One is You Can in Michigan. That is our new talent campaign that has been launched. Just Full launch was at the end of September or October 1. And that has been essentially what a lot of people were clamoring for. You Can in Michigan, the talent campaign. It's a little bit like the Pure Michigan tourism campaign that is a national campaign. This is something we envision to be supportive of employers in the state by retaining and attracting talent to the state. It's launched. So when I came into MEDC, there was zero funding for it. Something that I advocated for. We were able to solicit stakeholder engagement to get that launched. So just really, really excited how that's going to be supportive of our employers in the state. And the last thing I got to say is my team. I'm feeling a little sappy, sentimental, whatever the right word is, only because I've had some family medical stuff going on the last 2 weeks. And my team has been phenomenal. Spencer Lucker, Ava Atari, Chris Rishko are kind of my leadership team. and they're doing speaking events, media events. And I'm like, this is, and then people are texting me that are seeing them in action saying, oh, Spencer did a great job. Ava did a great job. And there is nothing better than hearing that feedback about the team that you're on and supporting and watching their growth. So I'm really proud of those two things as we wrap up this conversation today.
I love that. That's awesome. What about you, Kat?
I think I would say I am very proud, also feeling sappy, to be able to practice philanthropy at Bosch, particularly because of our rich history of philanthropy of our founder, but also it's very different than working for a private philanthropic organization where the money was created, the wealth was created a long time ago, and you're not connected to the person any longer. Like today, every day, I see my colleagues going out there and doing amazing things that I can't even fathom. And that's what allows me to do the job I do on behalf of this company. Like that is very cool to me and exciting. And I'd say the same thing. Like I always say, I have two bosses here and I would walk on hot coals for either one of them. I do like really love them and respect them. And the people that work on our team on the foundation side, like I just really enjoy seeing them every day. And so it makes it, I don't get the Sunday scaries like I have in other jobs because I'm happy to be doing what I do and doing it with the people like you, Jessica Dahl.
Oh, so sweet. Thank you. We need to get some guacamole soon and talk about it all. Yeah. So that's a backstory, but we won't go too far into it. But Kat and I've been at Bosch a long time. I've been at Bosch 17 years now, including my internship, and it's been a hilarious, fun journey, like just all over the place, which has been just a great opportunity to meet all different types of people doing all sorts of things. And now I get to talk with wonderful people, tell their stories, and it's just really inspiring. It's very enjoyable. Yeah, it's so cool. And one of my favorite things, I'm going to end it with this because I just think it's so valuable to hear from different perspectives. If you have something to share, I'd love to hear your best piece of advice. It can be personal or career related. I know both of you have been giving some tidbits here and there, but if you have something that you could leave with the audience, I'd love to hear it.
Oh man, that's a tough one. It's a big question. I don't know. I think one thing I talk about with my kids a lot right now is just like being honest and accountable because you never have to worry. Like you're gonna make mistakes. That's okay. But if you're accountable, it's sort of like it takes the sting away from it and like the yuckiness of it. Um, and my father always told me, have a plan. You're gonna deviate from it, but have a plan. So I think that's been helpful too. Like you're not gonna just be on this little very tidy linear path. You're gonna diverge and go off into into the woods a bit, and then you'll come back to it, and it might be just a big bad adventure.
I love that. That's so good.
Similar to your first is be brave. Put yourself out there, speak up, use your voice, try, be brave. That's my biggest advice to folks out there.
Well, thank you both so much for your time, for sharing so generously with us. And hopefully those listening, if you found this very inspiring and helpful, please leave a review so we can hear from you. We want to continue to deliver good content and useful content for you. And Kerry and Kat, I'm cheering you on for the work you're doing. Keep going. Thank you so much for what you do. And it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Bosch Podcast. In case you missed our other episodes, now's your chance. Go back and take a listen.